Hey guys, Sneaky Snake here, Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, and today's video we're going to take a look at a game that I had in the Izumo, the Tier 9 Japanese battleship. I'm playing by myself, and it's some domination here on the map Hotspot. Now, as usual, we've been giving you guys the captain skill and equipment layouts that we have for our ships for quite some time now. However, this video is not indicative of the actual setup that I have, considering that I just got through the grind on the Izumo this past weekend and ended up purchasing the Yamato with the 22 million credits that I had saved up at the time. So the Yamato captain that I have, that I would definitely run the exact same setup in this ship, would be something along the lines of preventative maintenance, expert marksman, along with adrenaline rush for the tier 3, superintendent and basics of survivability, and at the tier 4 skills we're going to put on fire prevention and concealment expert. And then for my equipment, also running concealment expert as well, which on the Izumo will get your detection down to 14.4 kilometers, and then going with a full gun focused build, i.e. getting the rate of fire and getting the accuracy equipment piece for your battleships. Again, specifically the Izumo in this case. I have since unlocked the Yamato as I previously stated. Now, the reason why I want to show you guys this replay is this was one of the better games that I've had in this ship. And this actually did not come from this past weekend. This came from 2 weeks ago when I was still deciding what I really wanted to run on my Izumo. And at this point, I still had somewhat of a hybrid build, with the only difference being instead of having the longer secondary range, I decided to swap it out for the improved gun accuracy, which is in your second equipment piece. And just notice throughout the course of this game just how accurate the Izumo is and why I was grossly misplaying this thing earlier. A couple months ago I did put a video on the channel titled something like Izumo Left Behind by the Meta ? And certainly this is not a ship that is left behind. I was just rather frustrated with the performance that I was getting out of it. But I am humble enough to say that I was running the wrong build. The Izumo, while it does have good secondaries, is really not the best ship, at least in the current meta, to be running the secondary build on. What you really want to do is focus on the main guns because they have incredible ballistics. 870 meters a second coming out of the barrel makes shooting at a rune at almost 16 kilometers very, very easy as I pump in a nice 11k salvo on that guy. And just notice throughout the course of this game the amount of high rolling salvos that I had, I should say. The first one on the Iowa was about 8.5k, which is a very respectable salvo in its own right. But once more, just watch and notice the performance of the guns throughout the course of this replay. Now, of course, other things about the Izumo that you do need to know is that, unfortunately, while the armor scheme is okay, especially at the bow, it's very, very tanky from the front. It has 32 millimeters of plating and deck armor all over the ship. So while there's not much of a superstructure to shoot at, 203 millimeter gunned cruisers are easily able to penetrate that 32 millimeters without using IFHE. So long-range HE spammers like Japanese and Russian cruisers, and now the French, of course, are very, very dangerous to deal with, and they can be quite the hassle to kill. So what you want to have happen is hopefully the cruisers to get a little bit too close to you where you can just punish them with these guns. The Izumo also comes with an okay AA suite, in large part because those guns work as excellent secondaries. However, again, as I mentioned earlier, do not run the full secondary build on this ship. You really do want to get as much out of the guns as possible in this thing. It also has very poor concealment. Even at 14.4 kilometers with a full concealment build, there's nothing off the top of my head that I think that you're going to be able to outspot. Maybe the Grosse Kurfürst, but I personally have only played one game in that ship on the PTS, so I do not remember. 26,000 right there into that Mogami with 4 overpens and 1 Citadel, so a very nice shot right there. You saw I jiggled the mouse a little bit because I thought I was going to get the full health deletion, but nonetheless, that guy is down to a very small fraction of his hit points. And you can see here I'm up to 47,000 points of damage dealt so far with 1 Citadel and 12 shots that have landed on target. And then another thing about the Izumo is its maneuverability. It's okay. It has a top speed of around 28-29 knots, which is pretty good. It's going to not be able to outpace the Iowa or the Missouri. They are certainly the top tier at tier 9 in that regard at about 33 knots, but this thing is fast enough to get the job done, to be honest with you. And yeah, that's really all about the statistics of the ship per se. Again, it's just these guns, and they are so good performing. And in this replay that you're going to see here is I do take quite a bit of damage right there as I am now turning away. And you can see there the damage that I am taking from that the Charles Martel that was shooting at me is quite considerable. And then the rune has also been peppering me as well. But this replay that you're seeing here, this is not even my highest damaging game in this thing. But it's just indicative of how lovely these guns are. And I know I've said it a million times, but this thing really is the king of long-range combat at Tier 9, and as such, if you're able to stay far enough away from the competition where you're not going to get focused, you can absolutely pummel enemy ships into oblivion. And I think it's a good reason, and the reason, why, so far with my Tier 9 battleships, this one is my best damage dealer. So at this point, I get lit on fire once more from the rune. You can see that every time his salvo hits me, I'm getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 damage done to the superstructure and to the deck area. And really, really quickly, I'm already down to half health, which is, while I was rambling on about the ship, if you didn't notice, I really did take quite a bit of a punishment right there. However, this Iowa is about to take one in return as well. He's 11.2 kilometers away. This is medium range for battleships. Hell, it's probably short range at the high tiers for battleships. Shells flying in on the target. The dispersion looks pretty good, and unfortunately, only 24,000 points of damage dealt to that guy with 6 penetrating hits. The new armor buff, or recently new armor buff to the American battleships, is rather annoying at times when you're trying to deal those really monster salvos and you get broadside Iowas that don't really have to angle and they don't really take citadels all that often. But nonetheless, still very nice salvo, large amounts of penetrating damage. You can see that he's chunked down to about half of his hit points as well. And you can also see that the angle that I'm at is more shells flying, and I do manage one citadel for 12,900 points of damage. You can see that the angle that I'm at, it almost looks too exaggerated, but listen and see all of the shells that are bouncing right off the side. They're trying to go through that front part of the bow, and they're just unable to do so. About a 30-degree angle in the Izumo is the ideal angle to use because enemy ships will think that your side isn't angled enough, and unfortunately, as you saw in that last salvo, all of the shells managed to bounce off me. So at this point, I'm now continuing my turn to starboard. I really don't want to be broadside to the Iowa, so that's why I am speeding up at this point and trying to get out of dodge so that when he does come around that island, I will be angled away from him okay. The Izumo doesn't necessarily do the best in a stern chase, when its stern is facing towards the enemy, simply because there's that 32 millimeters armor that I speak of that's very prevalent along the aft section of the ship, right about where that catapult fighter is. And once again, another very awesome salvo, 15,000 plus damage done with 5 penetrating hits. And if I'm not mistaken, every single salvo except for 2 thus far, the one shot on the Mogami and the one shot on the Iowa at the beginning, has been over 10k, with a couple of them around the 20k, even more so than 20k. And again, it just speaks to how absolutely ridiculous these guns are. And you can see here once again, as I zoom in on the rune, the dispersion is fantastic, and he just gets peppered right in the side for another 10k chunk taken off of him. Back-to-back salvos on that guy doing in excess of 22,000 points of damage, and he is now very, very hurt, and he is going to continue to move the heck out of the way. And I'm up to 114,000 points of damage. However, at this point, our team has lost 5 ships compared to the enemy team's is 4. It's 304 to 455. They've been in control of Charlie for some time. We've been in control of Alpha for some time. And once again, look at the accuracy on that Charles Martel. The Hipper does manage to take a bit of the damage from me, but I still play in 7,600 damage and secure my first kill of the game on that French heavy cruiser. So 121,000 points of damage now at this point, and again, I'm beating on a dead horse, but you just see the accuracy of these guns. And I know that the Izumo got a bad rep a long time ago when this game was rather new. It had a terrible A-hull that had terrible shells, and it really wasn't able to do much damage, but at some point they decided to scrap the A-hull and give it, the good performing guns starting off. And again, I don't know. Short of the Yamato, tell me a better high-tier battleship that is able to consistently deal damage at range. Obviously, American ships kind of fall out in that competition because they have the very slow shell velocities, and while they are somewhat accurate with the accuracy module, the American accuracy module that is, they just can't deal those raw, solid, meaty salvos consistently at range. And then certainly not so with the Germans because of their very poor accuracy. And it's a playstyle in the Izumo that, after playing 75 games in this thing when I finally got out of it, I really did enjoy. About 13 to 19 kilometers is your ideal engagement range, where you're, far enough away where if an enemy battleship gets a bad salvo of RNG, he really isn't going to punish you. And if you get a good salvo of RNG, you're absolutely going to deal damage. And I did make a Reddit post about this. I will provide it in the description below really quickly. For those of you that would like to read, I started a series on Reddit where when I finish the grind on a ship, I basically talk about it and, answer people's questions and comments and whatnot. So I will definitely provide that down below for you guys if you weren't aware on Reddit that I have been doing that for the past couple months. So at this point, it's 396 to 454. Bravo has now been captured. I believe it was by our friendly Fiji. You can also see that the Hipper on our team is moving into Charlie as well, and we're about 2/3 of the way done capping it. So even though that at the moment both teams still have 6 ships apiece, we are going to be getting the decisive advantage in points as we are getting ready to capture Objective Charlie, like I mentioned earlier. Now, another thing right here, you can see that the Iowa is roughly in Delta 8. Now, what I'm doing right here is just trying to estimate where he might be. I'm looking at the grid square. You can see it's 4.8 kilometers by 4.8 kilometers. So 2 grid squares ahead is about 9.2 kilometers. So that Iowa is about 1/3 of the way into Delta 7, Delta 8. So he's roughly 10 kilometers away from me at this point, which is my guess. So you can see that I aim at about 9.7 kilometers-ish. He was slightly moving in, and I am rewarded by a nice blind shot. I didn't catch the amount of damage that I did right there, but 3 overpens and 1 penetration. A very lucky guess, I will definitely say, but knowing those grid squares and, doing some quick math right there allowed me to take a pretty nice chunk out of that guy, and there was absolutely no idea that he knew that that was coming. I get my 3rd turret into play, trying to steal the kill here. I will admit, yeah, that was pretty dirty. But nonetheless, the Fiji manages to take care of the enemy Iowa, that Tier 9 American battleship. And now we have the decisive lead that we need, 571 to 394. And it's at this point that a full health Tirpitz appears out of the blue at 7 kilometers away from me. Now, in my previous video, I said that the Izumo really is good with the secondary build. And while the gun focus build is much better, this thing is still okay at brawling. Now, obviously, a Tirpitz is a very dangerous ship for any high-tier battleship to come across as I land yet another 10k plus salvo, 11,000 damage, and picking up the high caliber. But you can see that even without the secondary build, I'm still managing to land a pretty decent amount of my secondaries on target. I'm already up to, it appears, 18 hits there on that enemy Tirpitz thus far, and he is turned away. Obviously, he's dropped his starboard-sided torpedoes, so that's why I decided to turn in, and luckily for me, they are indeed a wide set. Is my secondary set fire number 2 on that guy? And even if you don't have the secondary build, as I mentioned, these secondaries still do okay, and you do have the Japanese fire chance on him, which is pretty nice as well. The Tirpitz is now definitely going for his port-sided torpedoes, so that's why I am speeding up and turning more so to the left. And you can see as I land yet another 11,000 damaging salvo into that guy and get up to 186,000 points of damage with the fires still burning on that guy. I'm not going to be able to get hit by his torpedoes because I anticipated that move, and once more with the widespread, really don't have to worry about it. Now, if you'll notice on the mini-map, there's an Izumo at about 70,000 hit points right out in front of me, so I got to stay angled to both of these guys. It makes it a lot easier since the Tirpitz is firing high explosive at me, and I get all my guns to bear on that guy, and I take care of that Tier 8 German premium battleship. Now I'm swinging my attention over here to the enemy Izumo, and you're going to get a masterclass right here on how to brawl and how not to brawl. You can see here that I still am angled. It looks bad on paper. I am starting to turn to starboard a little bit, and my secondaries continue to go to work on that enemy Izumo, but this angle right here that I'm at is actually really perfect, whereas he is providing way too much of a broadside. I get my full salvo out, do 10,000 damage, and pick up the Confederate as I crack 200,000 points of damage, and you can see that the angle I'm at now, while I'm waiting for his return salvo, you can see the shells fly in. One hits the superstructure, but a couple bounce right off the side of the hull, and at this point, this guy has royally screwed up, and now at this point, he's appearing to continue his turn to port, but I don't really know for sure. Not even all of his guns are pointed at me, so I'm going to be able to reload here really quickly with Adrenaline Rush kicking in, get the Citadel, 12,000 points of damage dealt to that guy, and I'm up to 229,000 points of damage as I secured my 3rd kill of the game. And I still have a little less than half of my HP left, but I do have 1 remaining heal. And it's at this point that the enemy hood appears at 24,000 hit points away from me at 7.2 kilometers. My secondaries continue to open up on that guy, or they start to open up on him. He goes broadside for whatever reason, and I'm thinking right here, here we go. Baby, gonna get 1 more deletion. He hits me for 7k, and the game ends. Alrighty, guys, taking a look now at the post-battle results. 963,000 credits received. I was running a few of the money flags. 13,122 total XP. and 2,628 free XP. This was the first win of the day. I picked up a Confederate, Dreadnought, and High Caliber. Very nice medals to earn in your battleships, with 229,000 points of damage dealt off of 68 shell hits that caused 3 citadels. My secondaries hit 71 times and started 3 fires, and of course I sent 3 ships to the bottom of the sea. Taking a look at the detailed report, the team score, 2,499 base EXP, easily tops on the team, and a very, very good performance in this ship. Again, not my highest damaging game, but one that just showed the power of the guns with the rate of fire and the accuracy. Now taking a look at the detailed report, 200k flat almost dealt with the armor piercing shells fired from the main battery, 13,000 done with the secondaries, which is a pretty healthy total, and a further 15,000 dealt with the fires that I set, and almost 2k potential damage taken in less than 14 minutes. So a very nice DPM game in this ship. And lastly, here at the money, you can see I had some flags on and earned a nice 733,000 credits in that game. So I really hope this game showed you guys just how effective the Izumo can be when spec'd correctly. And with that being said, the Sneaky Snake here for Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, signing off. Please consider giving the video a like, commenting on it, or possibly subscribing to the channel. All of it is very, very much appreciated, and have a great day.